Welcome to Fireside Gaming. I'm Billum, and we're giving the year of the indie a bit of a break so that we can check out Gunmetal. This also marks my first time reviewing an Xbox title, despite the fact that I bought one back in 2022 just to play games for review on this channel. Let's be honest, if you're a longtime subscriber, this shouldn't surprise you. I'm horrible about getting excited to do a project or review a game, and then let it sit for months before doing so. My apologies to everyone that's still waiting for my Kingdom Hearts 2 review or the probably now dead Evergrey story analysis. But getting back to Gunmetal, this was developed by Rage Software, a now-defunct studio that made loads of games during the 3rd through 6th console generations. Most of them were sports games, but they had a few shooter and strategy games in there as well, and I wasn't familiar with any of them. No matter the case, I jumped into Gunmetal optimistic just because of the gameplay premise. The main gimmick of the game is Project Gunmetal, the plan to create a military mech with the ability to change between humanoid and fighter jet modes. I'm a big mech lover, as I'm sure my review history on this channel shows. And I'm also a really big fan of Transformers, having grown up with a VHS copy of the 1986 animated movie and really sinking my teeth into the franchise with the release of Armada. The result of Project Gunmetal is the Havoc suit, which transforms into the Havoc jet. Players can do this action whenever they want, though it might not be the best idea to do it in the midst of an enemy force. The Havoc suit is a bit slow to transform, which can leave players stuck in place during transformation, making them an easy target. This is especially true when going from the humanoid form to the jet mode, but it can be gotten around by making sure to move before pressing the transform button, causing the suit to continue heading in the direction it was when the button was pressed. I do have to note that Gunmetal's control schemes are a bit weird. The main one I went with, which was also the default, had missiles on left trigger, the main gun on right trigger, transform on Y, jump on X, auto-aim on B, and change weapon on A. I really wanted to switch up the jump and weapon change buttons, but control options are preset, and none of the alternatives seemed better than the default one. This awkward control scheme did result in some instances of me transforming when I didn't mean to, or switching to a different weapon than I meant. Also, accidentally turning on the auto-aim was annoying, as it removes the ability to look up and down so that the game can do it for you, and it's not the best at it. There were also more than a few times when I got flustered and the non-traditional control scheme forced me to retreat from enemies while I wrapped my brain around it, especially in the early battles. Of course, players can't just run from the battles. How else would they complete the 14 missions that Gunmetal offers? Their arsenal starts off incredibly limited, with only basic machine pistols for the Havoc suit and Vulcans for the Havoc jet. As players complete more missions, they unlock more weapons. In total, the game has 24 weapons available to them, with each one having its own advantage and disadvantage. Players can take 8 weapons into each mission, evenly split between the suit and jet modes, and each weapon fits into a predefined category. This allows players to mix and match weapons for a large variety of loadouts. The freedom also extends to how players engage with enemies. Personally, I prefer the ground combat over the air battles. As a result, I spent more time in the Havoc suit defeating enemies from below instead of taking to the skies to rain bullets and missiles on them. What I did appreciate is the use of the Havoc jet to quickly traverse large levels. The size of these maps adds to the idea that these are large-scale conflicts, and the jet also allows players to quickly return to their base of operations for repairs and weapon restocks. At least, that's the case for most missions. There are some that don't offer players a fallback point, leaving them to complete the mission with the supplies they have, or maybe sometimes offering them an ammo drop-off, but no way to heal. I'm not going to say this makes Gunmetal a hard game, but it definitely adds to the arcade feel. There are more than a few levels where the real mission isn't beating all of the enemies, but finding the proper way to manage them to reach the end. For example, there's this mission where you have to take out 4 bases hidden in ravines, and you can't fly too high or you'll be shot down by anti-aircraft guns. Some of these bases are easier to destroy than others, and players have to destroy the missiles at the bases before they launch. Fail to do so, and you'll have to chase those missiles back through the winding canyons and shoot them down before they hit your base. Which in itself is a really cool concept and feels kind of cool, but it also means that you're not doing things right. After a few failed attempts, I made sure to go after the most difficult bases first to save my time in case I failed. Because nothing feels worse than completing the easy parts of the mission only to die near the end, wasting an extra 10 minutes or so on each run. With that said, the last couple of missions really go out of their way to beat players down who might have been feeling cocky up to this point. I spent a considerable amount of time on them, and I won't deny that my frustration levels were a bit elevated by the end of it all. I probably would have been angrier, but Gunmetal is quick to get players back into the action. It only takes about 10 seconds to get through the death screen and reload the level, which is something that I greatly appreciate. Even with my likely more than average number of deaths near the end of the game, the pace never slowed beyond reasonable levels due to the quick load times. The same can't always be said for the gameplay. While Gunmetal runs at peak performance the vast majority of the time, large influxes of enemies and huge explosions from the Havoc suit's weapons can combine to slow down the game. This won't happen often, and it doesn't last long, but it's something players will definitely feel at least a few times during their playthrough of the game. On that same note, players will want to turn off all of their higher resolutions on their Xbox before playing Gunmetal. I didn't at first, and was greeted by a completely glitched out display that was unplayable. From my limited search online about this issue, it appears that it's related to the Xbox version that I have. However, in my search across wikis, it also stated that Gunmetal doesn't have widescreen support, but mine didn't have a problem with that. Granted, I'm still new to Xbox recording, and I hope the cables I'm using haven't caused any display distortions. I've already played through Halo 1 and 2 on the console, and they looked great, so I'm hoping that's not the case. And now that I think about it, the cables that I use for my Xbox are the same ones that I have for my PS2 and other retro consoles. They're the same brand, so there really shouldn't be any kind of issue between them in terms of aspect ratio. With only 14 missions, Gunmetal is fairly short. It only took me about 5 hours to reach the end of the game, but that doesn't mean I won't be playing it again. One of the big appeals of Gunmetal is the ability to replay earlier missions with new weapons unlocked in later ones. This adds to the replayability of the game and is something that I'm looking forward to. The high-speed action and arcade feel of the game is exactly what I want whenever I'm relaxing between playing games for review. And if you don't run a YouTube channel, it might sound weird that you're not just recording all of your footage, so let me explain. It can sometimes feel like a chore to play games, as I don't often let myself get swept up in the story or the gameplay. Instead, I'm always analyzing the game or taking mental notes about things that I want to talk about in the review. You might have noticed that I do this in my demo discourse videos, and it's unintentional. It's just the habit that I've fallen into due to the nature of this channel. That's actually one of the reasons that I don't do too many Let's Plays. I feel like my way of looking at games isn't overly entertaining for viewers, and that many click away early in those types of videos. And to be fair, I have the YouTube analytics data to back that up. Now to be clear, that's not a criticism of my audience. I don't blame anyone for clicking away from a video that doesn't engage them. I do it too, even to people I'm subscribed to. This is more of just some inside baseball to give viewers some insight into what goes into my video creation process. I also often hold off on playing games because I have so many on my plate that I need to complete first, or it's my first time playing those games and I want to save back that experience for the YouTube review. At times, this leaves me looking for a game to unwind with that I don't have to worry about recording, and there's not too many of those. My go-to games for this right now are the first 2 Star Wars Battlefront titles on the PS2, with some other ones getting slotted in here and there. And now I can add Gunmetal to that list, and I'm already looking forward to spending more time with it when I need another break from playing games for the channel. Back to the actual game we're talking about, because I'm getting very off track throughout this entire review, Gunmetal also has an incredibly fitting soundtrack. Each level gets its own unique song, and they all carry that somewhat grungy and industrial feel that mecha games from this era go for. I wouldn't say the soundtrack is as good as one from other mecha games, such as Armored Core or Omega Boost, but it meshes perfectly with the game, and I had no problem jamming to it while typing up this review. At this point, all that's really left to cover is the story. It's a bit bare bones this time around. Let's start with what's in the manual to avoid spoilers. The basic premise of Gunmetal is that players are an unnamed soldier piloting the Havoc suit and jet to fight off an invading force. This invading force, strangely enough, comes from Earth. No, we aren't aliens. Instead, we are humans that got into a civil war shortly before a migration to Helios, with many fleeing to the distant planet through a jump gate. The jump gate was then shut down, bringing an end to the conflict, until the humans on Earth learned how to reconnect the jump gate to Helios, reigniting the war. Eventually it was destroyed, leaving only the invaders that made it through as the main military threat. Our job is to exterminate them while preventing the destruction of our world's own military bases, cities, and people. Alright, so now we're going to get into the spoilers for the story of this game. We succeed. No, seriously, there's not much else to it. All of the characters are unnamed, there's no personal stories to follow, it's just exterminate the invaders and bring peace to Helios. The end. Personally, I don't mind that it's a simple story considering the more arcade feel that Gunmetal has going for it. In fact, I'd even go so far as to argue that a narrative would have weighed the game down and messed up its pacing considering its arcade inspirations. So good on RETROspective for making the right decision to not waste time on a bigger plot. Gunmetal is my first exposure to Rage software, but maybe it won't be my last. Despite the death of the studio, a handful of their games are still available on Steam, including Gunmetal, and it's only $3. That's a steal for this game, and Steam Database says that it regularly goes on sale for less than $1. On top of that, recent Steam reviews suggest that it still works well on modern computers. If you have any interest in this game, there's really no reason not to check it out on Steam. For physical collectors, the game goes for $12 complete right now, and I found my copy for $6 or $7 about a year ago. Personally, I'm satisfied with the experience I got out of this game at that price. That's doubly true knowing that I'm going to be playing through it again with new weapon combinations to try out. Overall, Gunmetal is a good game. It's a lot of fun and it's well worth the time to pick up and play, especially with how cheap you can get it. The combat and loop is solid, and it has some decent challenge without feeling unforgiving. It's the type of game that's easy to pick up and play or put down at a moment's notice, never feeling like I'm too committed to it to do something else. Also, I feel like I did a bit of a disservice to this game in my retro game collecting video because I forgot what it was all about. I don't know, I can't remember much about this. It was on our list. I knew it was one that I wanted to play, and that's about all I remember, unfortunately. But I think I've remedied that with this review. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, take it easy.